world of cyber security today, and what's that landscape looking like?
We won't get it out by noon.
Oh, well, we'll keep it short.
All right, so there's a lot of bad things going on. That's what we keep hearing about, everything from the MGMs of the world to what's happening with cyber terrorism. It's impacting everybody today, and it's going to be provoking, but every one of us in this room has a target on our back. I mean, we are walking potential victims when it comes to cybersecurity. And I don't want to use FUD to scare you with doing security, but the reality is that bad things are happening to good companies, bad things are happening to good people, and if we will all work together, we can solve these challenges. But it's when we don't work together or we put our head in the sand that we end up in a world of hurt. Now, what does that mean? Let's change the question a little bit, if that's okay, Mark.
Absolutely.
In the room, how many of you are owners of your dealerships? Show of hands. A few owners. How many of you are quota carrying or sales reps? Show of hands. Okay, how many of you are engineers or sales engineers or techs in that space? Okay, so if I apply that to each of you, that question, you've got three things to think about. If you're an owner, how do I know that what our teams are deploying is being deployed, leveraging best practices when it comes to security? And you probably say, well, we trust our teams. Well, that doesn't work anymore. We had a scenario we did an event earlier this year with the ECS, and we ran a dark web scan on all the companies that were in attendance. And we started finding where a lot of your staff's credentials were for sale on the dark web. And in many cases, we found where dealers were using the same password on all of their client sites. So that's not a best practice, right? So how do we fix that? If you're a tech or if you're an engineer or your responsibility is technology, are you being trained on what good security looks like with the tools that you're putting in place? If we don't know what good looks like, we can't map to futures. We can't help you move forward. And I'm very confident that there's lots of good information out there, whether it be ConnectWise who's teaching you those things or you're learning it from the manufacturers. They will all share what those best practices are. You've got to enforce them. From a sales perspective, this is the part that I like the most, which is weird because I'm a tech at heart. There's opportunity. I mean, how do we turn this into opportunity for us as a business to help drive revenue and protect your clients? And when you get that figured out, you're probably in pretty good shape. So there you go. There's my short answer.
Brian, you want to add to that, or talk to us about what cyber resilience is, or anything?
Well, when you look at your customers and you look at your own organization, cyber resilience is really the question of what is the risk tolerance that your customer has and you have in your organization. What I mean by that is what is your business willing to accept in terms of downtime of operations if their systems get compromised? What is your tolerance of breach of sensitive customer data? And as you look at that across your business, and there's multiple angles to look at the risk, you have to decide what your tolerance is, and then based on that tolerance, determine what your investment's going to be in securing your environment. That environment is everything Jay talked about it. You guys are in your customer environments. You may have VPNs into your customer environments. Do you have that secured properly? When you set up devices, whether it's printers, whether it's other equipment on the network, do you have standards for how that should be hardened properly? And are you communicating that to your customer? When it comes to monitoring, do you have an ability to monitor that environment and see when an event is going on and be able to react to it? And that reaction can be multiple levels. It could be as simple as you're dispositioning a phishing email to I'm shutting down systems on the network actively to make sure something doesn't spread laterally. You get into your response, which this hits into the response, right? Do you have an ability to respond to an event that occurred in your environment, or does your customer have the information they need about what you're setting up in their environment to be able to respond to it? And then lastly, that recovery, because as you see, great companies are getting compromised every day. And if you don't have an ability to recover to an event that occurs, meaning do you have backups? Can you restore those backups? Have you tested those backups? Then you're gonna go down and you're handcuffed, you're toast. So when you think of cyber resilience, it's looking at that whole spectrum of am I setting it up in a zero trust model? Am I monitoring it? Can I respond? And can I restore when that point comes that you do get attacked?
So that brings up a question I have, Brian. And you pretty much answered it, but I want to hear what your perspective is on this. There's the phrase, it's not if, but when, that everyone's pretty familiar with. But how in that world that we live in now, do you define success? What are your success metrics in security?
So I have many success metrics that I look at. One, the business is up and running. That's a key one. Two, my customers haven't been impacted, so that's a key one. Three, the sales team can go sell and not be impacted by something that's going on. That's an important one. But then you get down underneath of that. It's everything from how many of my users were taken down because they clicked on a link in a phishing email. Well, either my training's not working well, maybe my controls aren't working well to detect emails. How many times do I see vulnerabilities being attacked on our internet presence? Well, that may mean that my operational vulnerability management process just isn't working well, and we should be getting either the patching process working well or controls sitting on top of it, because I'll tell you what, every company has legacy debt. I just guarantee they do. So do they have the controls around that system in order to mitigate the risk that legacy debt presents to them, whether it's on the internet or within their network? So you have to look across each one of the areas I talked about before as a sub KPI, right, that you're monitoring, and think about it from a business perspective. What's going to take the business down? What's going to cost either the business money or cost operational effectiveness of an individual to make sure that they can be up and running and doing their job? Because the best security is the one they don't see.
Right, well, I mean, the MGM story, it sounds like they didn't hit any of those metrics, so.
Well, and the MGM story, you had a help desk person that got hit. And so you go back to a process in the help desk and think about your own help desk. Could someone fake them out, say they're an admin, and get their credentials and go in and attack your environment? It's not hard.
Yeah, and take that one step further. MGM is a good example because they went wide and deep in the network with that access. If someone on your current help desk falls victim, how far can the attacker go with their credentials? They shouldn't be able to see accounting system information. They shouldn't be able to see business line applications. Right? They should only have certain access. But over the years, we've built these flat networks where I'm using VLANs, and then you end up having access for these users to go wider and deeper. And so if you're technical in this room, you know what I'm talking about. Separate your equipment, separate the network into as many segments as you can, either physically or virtually, so that an attacker can only go so far without needing more credentials.
All right, next slide. This is one of my favorite slides here. How many of the room knows what this is? Got a few people laughing, right? So what we care about in this room is making copies, but making them secure. So you guys have thrown out the word vulnerability a couple of times. So most of us in this room, when we sell a piece of software, we're selling annual maintenance and support with it. What are your thoughts, Jay, on should annual maintenance and support cover security vulnerabilities? Should there be something additional that the dealers are offering to go in for firmware updates, that sort of stuff? Or is it just all inclusive?
Yes. I mean, the answer is all. There's a point in time where you start looking at this and saying, what's the opportunity, I go back to the sales side of this, to provide a better level of care for your clients. We've built some technology, some security technology around SIM, or security incident event management, around sharp equipment that exists and is available to all dealers today. Right now, you can add that on to your current licenses to all of your clients and drive value. When we announced that, pretty much every other manufacturer came to us, and we're now having those conversations to help you at least get visibility of what's going on. You may not be able to protect every attack, but the intent and kinds of the metrics that we look at have to do with how quickly can I detect an intruder before they've caused harm. If I can detect it within, let's say, 15 to 30 minutes, as opposed to 15 to 30 days, the risk is very different for that business. And so that's how I see, protecting that network is, create a separate VLAN for your technology, and then put in controls to watch what's going on, so you at least know what's happening, as quickly as possible before they've attacked. And to give you a metric to be aware of, right now the average ransomware attacker is in a network 23 days before they launch the attack. So if I can see their motion and movement around a network that you wouldn't normally see prior to that 23 days, I probably cut risk for you and for your clients. So thinking about those kinds of technologies is going to help solve that for you.
All right. What about cyber insurance? Do you have any recommendations?
It's required. So as business owners, the room is probably this we're talking to in most cases, you must have it. I will tell you that there's a lot of technology firms, TSPs as we call them, that are now will not take on a client who doesn't have cyber coverage. Because somebody has to own the responsibility, and the losses are big, and the insurance companies are forcing businesses to put the right controls in place, which only in long time provides value for all of you. But you should be having those conversations inside of your organization around, yes, it might slow down sales, but it's also going to be a better client if they're in fact engaged with cybersecurity insurance.
And the challenge with cyber insurance is the market is starting to mature, but for years it had not, right? And so the cyber insurance company, the carrier, is going to come in with a lot of questions for an organization, and they're going to ask about a lot of things. Where their focus has been, at least for us in the last year, has been around operational technology. So if you're dealing with a client that has manufacturing environments, they're very focused on the security around the OT, and they're very focused on system accounts. And this gets back to what Jay was saying. If you guys are setting up systems and system accounts aren't strong, the passwords or the credentials being used for them aren't strong, and they're not randomized, and strongly suggest you put them in some sort of key store, you're going to have that customer is likely to have a problem when the cyber insurance company comes in and starts asking questions. And 2FA, yes, and 2FA.
Can I ask another question?
Of course you can, please.
Brian, are you using AI on any level with what you're doing at Lexmark?
We are. So
And how
in the security space, AI has been baked in for years. Now, there is a tool that we recently rolled out that I found to be extremely useful. There's a since I won't name names, there is a email security tool that we recently purchased that runs AI on top of Exchange, and it'll run on top of Gmail as well. And we were having challenges with Microsoft. Lexmark's an E5 customer with Microsoft, so we have all their security tools. But their security tools weren't catching the phishing emails. So in particular, I don't know if this group knows this, but in April, there was a new threat actor that started up called Evil Proxy, and they're running a cloud platform phishing service. So, anyone in here could go sign up to go target any company. And $250, say, hey, go target this company, and they will start sending the phishing emails, and then they share in the profit on whatever the ransom ends up being. When that group picked up in April, Microsoft's tools were struggling. So we bought a tool to sit on top of Microsoft, and it uses AI to detect when it's a phishing email or not, and it has cut our phishing click rate, so true click rate, down to 0.
Wow.
Which has been impressive.
What tool? Yeah, what tool is that?
All right, it's abnormal is the tool that we bought.
Okay.
It was quite impressive. The other side effect is they have that AI that you guys may hate this, but they have AI that detects when it's a promotional email, and it'll take the promotional email out of your inbox and throw it in the promotions folder. So for someone like me,
You'll never see it.
Yeah.
I won't see it.
You'll never see it.
But man, I can get through my email and get to actionable emails very quickly.
Jay, what's ConnectWise doing with AI? I know you're doing a lot.
Yeah, we announced just last week at our IT Nation Connect event, AI that you can use with using our tools. So if you're using Manage, or if you're using Automate or RMN, we're putting in sequences to help your techs write scripts, analyze data, look at client sentiment scores inside the ticketing, and automate a lot of things that are otherwise manual tasks. You know, if you have to do it twice, you probably can automate it. So let's figure out how to do that. From a business perspective, though, this goes way beyond this because now you've got to secure it. So here are my core recommendations when it comes to AI. First off, you should all be using it today. At a minimum, ChatGPT or an equivalent, to just start to learn what it is. We are in the AOL days of AI when it comes to how it's used in the world. Okay, so we're all just learning, we all just got mail, and here's how we're getting started. But first you gotta put in a company policy on what's acceptable. Two, you should immediately roll it out as a company as opposed to having individuals deploy it, and put it behind an Active Directory secure environment. That keeps your users from loading a client spreadsheet, do some analysis, and then that spreadsheet becomes public domain. Okay, so spend a little bit of money, and then get your teams using it day in, day out. We've done a bunch of events on this here recently. Your marketing teams will probably be the first to adopt. They can use it to ideate, they can use it to create content, they can use it to improve content, and it works really well. And there's a lot of really specific AI tools for that industry. You'll then find that your techs will start using it to script things that they do all the time to make things more efficient. You'll see business leaders starting to use it to analyze contracts. We uploaded a 15-page vendor contract they wanted us to sign for renewal, and we uploaded it, the PDF, and we said, give it to me in English so I can understand in 3 paragraphs or less. Show me what the 5 biggest areas of risk I have with recommendations on how we can mitigate that risk. It took about 13 minutes, came back with a really good 2-page summary, it was all said and done. We then gave that to our attorney, and they were able to actually focus on that and say, yes, this is all good, I'm changing these 2 things in our state, this applies, but it allows you to focus on those kinds of things. But then comes the challenge, well, is AI going to replace us? Well, our perspective is AI is going to replace people that don't know how to use AI. And that's probably where we get to. Now, there's a point in time where, bad things could really happen, but I don't think we're there yet. I think we're a long way from there because everything right now is trained and learned. That there's, in the commercial space, we're not seeing anything much beyond that except for what Microsoft and Google and the biggest companies are doing, which won't impact us for years.
So that's great for innovation, right? Innovation and collaboration. So one thing Jay said earlier today, and it was at Mike's event with ECS earlier this year, and this is how we kind of got we stole his number thing. So we showed up, and Josh and I, we noticed this number on our bottom of our badge. It was like 23, 26, something like that. There's going to be a person in this room who works for us who's not going to appreciate this, but what he said was, when Jay was up there, he's like, look, whatever number's on your badge is how many email usernames and passwords we were able to pull off the dark web. We were pretty low. There were some in the hundreds, a few in the thousands, right? So of our 23, there was one employee that had 20 of them, right? But we were able to get to that and correct it and fix it. And so that was the collaboration part. But some of the things we hear out here are people come up, hey, we gotta act. What do you need to do here, right? So let me ask this of you, Willett. What do you think about how people should talk about it? If something happens, should they keep it closed up? Should they be out here talking to other people, learning? What are your thoughts on that?
My personal opinion is being transparent, but you have to be careful about your transparency. I'll give you a couple examples here. If you look at SolarWinds right now, it's basically come out with SolarWinds that they were, and I would love to argue with someone all day about whether or not the SEC should be going after their CISO, but they're basically arguing that SolarWinds was negligent, and their CISO in particular was negligent because he had people underneath that were telling him there are risks, and then he didn't bubble it up to the executive team and the board. You've got to look at your own organization when you're being transparent. You need to make sure that the risks that are in your environment, you're communicating them up. But when an event occurs, it's good to be, in my opinion, transparent on the risk and then what actions you've taken in order to address the way they got in or the process that failed on how they got in. Because if you're closed, you're going to have lots of problems. One, first thing as a customer of a vendor when they have an incident that occurs on my side is we shut down their accounts, right? We cannot do any workflows with that vendor until I understand what's going on in that environment and how they've gotten control over what's going on. So business just shut down between them, and I'll keep it locked down until they tell us exactly what's going on and what they've done to mitigate the event that occurred. And that gets painful for both sides. Right, I've got business areas on my side saying, "Dude, when are we going to get this turned on?" And I'm like, I don't know what's going on. And then on the other side, they're saying, "Hey, all's good. We're good to go." So every company, every one of that vendor's customers is going to behave differently. But I can tell you, those of us who are making sure to avoid the risk of either a lateral move into my environment or my data or my customer data getting compromised by their breach, they're going to shut it down. They're going to lock it down and stop the business until they can get that figured out. So the transparency, I think, is key.
To me, it should be a learning opportunity, right? So there is a point in time after an event is done and the insurance company has gone home and the attorney has stopped billing you for it, that it's probably fair to talk about things, but you got to be careful, right? Because putting out information about how these things happen sometimes causes others to fall victim. So you have to anonymize as much as you can, and you have to be willing to share, which is tough. I mean, how many times do you guys have an issue at work? You know, go to the bar that night and say, "Man, 3 employees walked out today." Well, you might have that conversation, but you're not going to go to the bar and say, "Hey, we got hit by a ransomware attack today. How was your day?" That's not going to happen. So how do we find that fine line? Quite often it's getting someone to speak on your behalf. We've got an incident response team, and they're there not necessarily on behalf of the insurance companies, but we want to protect our partners. So if any of you fall victim, we can be one of your first calls, and we'll provide you a team of resources with a focus on protecting you, because at the end of the day, words matter. There's a lot of words in cybersecurity that are legal terms, and people don't know that. For example, the word breach. If someone uses the word breach in a conversation, you just now brought attorneys in. Because
Don't ever use that word.
Yeah, just don't use it. It's the B word you choose not to use. But you wouldn't know that unless someone told you that, because it just seems okay. You just say we got hacked. No, frankly, I'd say we've got an outage. Our network is down. And stop there. Don't overcommit. And having been through way too many incidents with partners, and even prior to that in my technology days, you have to learn those things. And all these things start early, before it's happened. It kind of speaks to what you're saying, Brian, right? Show that you were doing the right work. But running through an incident response exercise with your team, once a year, once a quarter, once a month, whatever it takes until they really get it, understand what good looks like, matters. It's actually probably a great topic for a future event, is to run through a mock tabletop exercise with everybody in the room. But when you learn these things and you learn what happens, then you learn what happened to other people. Because we always bring in previous incidents. It can show you, hey, this is what happened to them, the mistake that this dealer made that caused harm, without putting that dealer in jeopardy.
And the thing to remember, breach being a bad word, in the regulatory space, that has meaning, and it sets timers off. And not only is it a liability to you once you say you've had a breach, but two, it starts the notice requirements, and depending on the area you're operating in, like if anybody operated in Europe, that sets off GDPR timers. California has similar timers. So you want to give the business and the teams, the incident teams, time to be able to respond to it, contain it, but at the same time give the legal team an opportunity to get their story together so that it can then be communicated out.
Awesome. All right. And
We have a little bit of time, maybe one or two questions, if you guys have any. You guys are scared to death to ask a question. All right, John, go ahead.
Yeah, I'd like to kind of tie the security conversation to the MFP. And Jay, I think you started to mention that you helped some OEMs figure out a way. I think, Jay, you added a comment about helping OEMs figure out a way to add protection. I'm assuming it's through some sort of embedded malware detection.
No, we're actually doing it at network layer, so we're watching it surrounding the MFP as opposed to putting something on the device you have to manage.
I would tell you, given my history on the product side, trying to put tools within the firmware itself present major challenges on an imaging device. There are controls that you can put in place, but actual monitoring tools, they're going to struggle. And they're also going to struggle because when you look at these devices and the data streams that they're talking in, your antivirus type tools don't really understand what malware might be in PostScript, right? And so they're not going to do well. So back to Jay's point, it's around the ecosystem you put around this device. I always call it mastering the fundamentals. It's have I hardened the device, meaning turned off all the services you don't need on that device and set admin passwords. Am I able to monitor the device? Have I segmented the device? And just the systems that need to access that printer only have access to it. Said monitor it, and then typically if you have to do some sort of control, it's probably at a network level, right? You're shutting down networking to that device.
That's a quick plug for Multiverse. You can see the devices, you can see what's going on, you have access to it. It's a free tool, Josh Lane, T-Rex kind of stuff. Ben, go ahead.
So you provide this service, let's just say something happens that takes the customer's right now for 2 weeks. Is it their cybersecurity that covers that, and you're like, look, we have an accountability, we can help you resolve it, or is there like, hey, we're gonna cover the cost of this? What does that look like? I'm just curious.
Yeah, we're not gonna cover the cost of it. So let's not go there, but we've got a team that is a paid service that will bring in the ability to look at forensics, look at what happened, to show you what happened, how to avoid in the future, and help you get the client back up online quickly. They'll negotiate with the attacker if there's payments to be made. They'll work with your team in that process. More importantly, they'll work with you before it happens. So your team has an understanding what their responsibility is in the event of an incident.
awesome.
And maybe from my side, when I'm working with partners that are a managed service, we're going to put in the contract an SLA around what, for instance, firmware updates or patching cadence will be based on the severity of the vulnerability. If something happened, we would always have some sort of liability cap in the contract. I would love unlimited, but the vendor is going to say there's a liability cap. And in that, if you don't meet the SLA and an event occurs, you're protecting yourself through that liability cap contract.
Awesome.
Anything else? Michael, go ahead.
Yeah, two quick questions. So on risk assessment for the client, yeah, do you guys do risk assessment for the client, and then how do you transfer that to a insurance proposal? So do you do the network assessment? Do you provide that tool for the end user?
So ConnectWise does not do that, but we provide you the tools necessary to run those assessments. And then we actually work with a couple of groups like Control Case and others that will bring a standardized list of questions to the table that most insurance companies are asking, so that you're getting the information up front to help them with their annual renewal surveys or those kinds of things.
But if you go off of like NIST cybersecurity framework, CSF. And you go through that control set and you do the process of doing your own assessment, or you can bring a third party in. There's lots of companies who will come in and do that process. Just going through that process and understanding your effectiveness prepares you for the cyber insurance side.
We have one more in the back.
Yeah, while you're getting that, how many of you, from a technical perspective, are being asked to fill out those insurance questionnaires? Show of hands.
Okay, so it's coming.
So, yeah, it's coming to this market. What I would suggest is keep copies of those, of what you're filling out. Start looking for commonalities between the carriers, because they're now starting to figure out what good looks like, and they're asking the same questions. That will help you then guide your clients by showing them the questionnaires moving forward.
Last one.
All right, non-technical question. All right. We came out of IT Nation last week, and fantastic event. A lot of talking of other MSP providers. And the general feel, the scuttlebutt, if you will, it's difficult to onboard 7 to 10 clients a year. And so, for those of us in the MFP business, I mean, we got this business model, we can install, deliver, set up, fantastic. But as a lot of us are transitioning into this MSP business, there's a true revenue gross profit limit if we keep running into this ceiling. So are there things coming in around the corner, things that can help us bring these wonderful solutions to our client base at scale?
Yeah, it's a great question. I'm gonna go back in time 10 years when I sold my MSP. We were adding one new managed service client every 8.9 days. So from that perspective, we were then onboarding one new client every 8.9 days.
It's 3 months.
Yeah, it was almost 4. It was very close. So we got really good at it. You put a process in place, you assign people to that task, and all they did was onboarding. Now, fast forward 10 years, leveraging the tools that are out there today, and a lot of the things you can do with RMM, for example, you can automate a lot of the installations. And what you heard last week, if you read between the lines, we believe that at ConnectWise, you'll get to a point where you're going to spin up a new site and pick the tools you want, apply it to the first machine, and it will take it and run it from there across all your machines. You'll be able to provision technology with point-and-click capability. That's everything from security to management to everything you do inside of a managed services or IT services business.
So along that, I'm sorry.
I'm gonna shut that down because we gotta go. We gotta close. You get 15 Uber things here, but we want to say thank you. Yes, follow up after this. Les, you got some time. We'll have those conversations. I do want to say thank you to the panel. You guys are great. This is awesome stuff. We'll have some more follow-up webinars from ACDI on this. We're bringing them.